La 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 la. Hello, everybody. It is just about 1 o'clock here on the East Coast, and I'm going to give people a few more seconds, and just in case anybody is just logging in. My name is Jeff Goldberg. I am a sales confidence expert. I am a sales coach and trainer, and I work with both individuals and organizations to help them increase their sales. And I also know just a little bit about setting goals, and this is the perfect time of year to be thinking about it. This is the perfect time of year to actually set aside some time, like I hope you're doing right now. And if not, sometime in the next week or two, where you're going to actually consider what your goals are for 2026. And what I'm looking to do is give you some expert advice, some tips and tools to actually not just set your goal for 2026, but achieve your goals for 2026. So if you have any comments or any questions, I'll try to keep an eye on the comments while I'm talking to you. And let's get going since it's 1 o'clock. First of all, who am I? Well, I'm a sales coach and trainer. I'm the owner of Jeff Goldberg and Associates, which is a sales training and coaching firm where I work with companies all over the world to help them increase their sales. I've worked with companies that you're familiar with, like Cisco Systems and Siemens and Aramark and State Farm and Citibank. And I love doing training for corporations. I'm also the founder of the Sales Confidence Lab, which is a 12-week training program for what I call accidental sellers, coaches, consultants, people like that who did not go into business to be a salesperson, but have to know how to sell in order to get enough clients. And I'm also the co-author of a book called How to Be Your Own Coach, which is all about setting and achieving your goals, which I wrote with my dear friend and mentor, Steve Bookbinder, when he was training to swim the English Channel. And we based this on not just setting goals, but also how to achieve them. Before I get into goals, I want to give you a couple of tips that may help you in your selling for 2026. Number one is, if you're going to be successful in sales, the number one tip I give all the time is you've got to be consistently and effectively prospecting. So if you're going to succeed in 2026, you need a plan. Are you going to be making calls? Are you going to be doing social media? Whatever type of prospecting you are going to be doing, you need a plan, and it should be written down. Also, you're going to want to make sure that you have defined your ICP, your ideal client profile. If you don't know what type of prospects are good for you, if you don't know what kind of client you really want to work with and that you can serve best, you're going to have a pretty hard time finding them. So you should actually take the time to write down all the characteristics of what your ICP is. That way you'll recognize them when they show up. And you should have some kind of a tool to do research, whether it's something like ZoomInfo or Apollo.io or any of the others. And I see that my crack team made a mistake. That's not supposed to be Apollo.io. That should be Apollo.io. And of course, when I say my crack team, I mean they're probably in the other end of the office smoking crack right now. And what I really mean is me, because I put this thing together. So my bad. Next, you want to understand, excuse me, why people buy. And here's the simple reason. People buy because it makes sense to buy. In fact, we do everything we do because it makes sense to do those things. For example, before I got on this meeting with you guys right now, let me see if he's behind me. I got to spell this because he is behind me. I WALKED'd the DOG. Now, if I had said that, he would have jumped up just now and thought it was time to do it again. But I did that because I didn't want him bothering me while we were talking. And I wanted to make sure that when I got off of this call with you guys, that there were no little gifts for me in the house. So we do everything we do because it makes sense. I also had some lunch before I got on this call because I was hungry. It makes sense to eat when you're hungry. People also buy because it makes sense to buy. So when we're selling, we have to find out what makes sense to our prospect about what we're trying to sell them. We also have to understand why people buy from you, not just why people buy, but why people buy from you. And again, my crack team should have used a black font. I thought it was, but okay. At any rate, people buy from you because they like and trust you. If there's one thing that has not changed in the 50 years that I've been selling, it's that people still do business with people that they both like and trust. And of the two, the trust is actually the most important part. So we have to invest a little time up front when we're speaking to people, developing that like and trust. So they'll buy from you if they like and trust you, and if you create a relationship and show them enough value. People buy relationship and value, both things, and you've got to have both. The other thing I want you to take away from this is I do consider this the most important thing that I teach salespeople, and that's be nasty. Now, when I say that, I don't mean be nasty to prospects or customers. I mean, be nasty is an acronym, and that stands for the best next action step toward yes. Best next action step towards yes. And it's very simple philosophy. You never leave a meeting or a phone call without setting up the next meeting or phone call right then and there. This shortens your sales cycle, and it makes sure that you're working with interested prospects, because if somebody gives you some of their valuable time to meet with them, and then they agree to give you more of their valuable time, then they're interested. They may not do business with you, but they're certainly interested. Otherwise, they wouldn't set another meeting. But that's not what the typical salesperson does. The typical salesperson ends a meeting by saying, okay, I'm going to put together a proposal, and I'll give you a call. We'll set up another meeting, and I'll share that information with you. Well, then you try to call them, and excuse me, you never get a hold of them again. They start ghosting you. If you want to avoid being ghosted, and if you want to shorten your sales cycle, always be nasty. Get a best next action step toward yes. Also, stop pitching. Just stop using that word. I hate that word with a passion. The only pitcher should be on a mound at Shea Stadium. I live in New York. So there's a simple process for selling. Excuse me. And that is, number one, we have to establish rapport and continue to build on that during the sales process, because people do business with people they like and trust. Then the second thing we have to do is ask questions. We have to gather information. And of course, we want to handle any objections that we are coming up during that time. You don't want to wait till the end after you've asked somebody to buy and they've told you no to handle objections. Handle them early on in the process so that you can get them out of the way. Or if you discover there's an objection you can't get past, you might as well stop the process and not waste any more of your time. Then you confirm the answers that you got from the questions you asked. You make your presentation using 4 elements, those being enthusiasm, features and benefits, and a story that helps them get past the thinking, what if I make a mistake? You can negotiate if you need to. And in my programs, I always teach people how to do it, even though I don't negotiate. When I give someone my number, that's my number. But then you have to negotiate if necessary. And of course, you do have to ask people for their business. And in sales, we call that closing. So let's talk about goal setting, and let's get you set up. By the way, if you don't already have a piece of paper, now would be a great time to get one, because I'm going to show you from a form that you can download from my website for free how to do this. But for today, at least have a piece of paper or something you can write on. So why should you set goals? Well, it's obvious. In his great book, Psycho-Cybernetics, Dr. Maxwell Maltz says, we are all born with a success mechanism in our brain. In other words, you pop out of the womb born to be successful. If you believe in God, God created you to be successful, but you come out of your mother's body born to be successful. So you've got a success mechanism already in there, but the success mechanism needs something to focus on. Otherwise, it just sits there and does nothing. What does your success mechanism need to focus on? Your goal. You guessed it, exactly right. So the reason we set goals is, of course, so we can achieve them and have the benefits of whatever that achievement is, but we set them so that the success mechanism will help us to do the things that we need to do in order to achieve them. So here's step number 1, directly from my book, How to Be Your Own Coach. First thing, of course, is you have to write down your goal. Any goal setting expert will tell you the same thing. If your goal is not written down, it's not real. So number 1 is you write down your goal, and it's got to be specific. I want to make a lot of money. I want to be happy. I want to be skinny. Those are lovely thoughts, but they're not great goals, because the brain focuses on specifics, not generalities. I want to be happy. Sounds great. How do you define happiness? I want to be wealthy. How much money will it take to be wealthy? So in sales, we certainly typically set a financial goal. So what's your financial goal for 2026? Now would be a great time to write that down, write that number down, and express it as I will. It's not I hope, or I want to, or I wish. As a coach, when I work with coaching clients, I always tell them, I don't care what your hopes and dreams are. I don't care what your wishes are. I don't care what you want. As a human being, I care about all that stuff. But as a coach, I only care about one thing. What are you going to do? What are you committed to? So if you're going to write down your goal right now, please write it down as I will have earned X amount of dollars by the end of 2026, or by December 31st, 2026. So write it down, make it specific. Make your goal a reach, but not ridiculous. So if this year in 2025, you're going to end up with an income of, let's say, $85,000, Your goal of $2 million in 2026, it's possible you can achieve that, but it's not very likely you're going to make that big a leap. So make it realistic, but a reach. If your goal is too small, it's just as bad as it being too big. A goal of, I'm going to wake up and brush my teeth every day. Well, you're probably going to do that anyways. At least I hope you are. So make your goal something that gets you excited. If it doesn't get you excited every day when you get out of bed to say, here's another day I can work towards achieving my goal of X, then your goal is too small. Next thing you want to write down, why is this goal important to me? It's not enough to just have the goal. You've got to understand why it's important to you, because in every goal, especially when you're setting a year-long goal, an annual goal, stuff's going to go wrong. We all want it to be a straight ride, a straight line up to success, but that's never the way it works. There's always curves and bumps and walls and bridges and things that are in the way. Well, a bridge wouldn't be in the way, but all the rest of it's in the way of you achieving your goal. And you either have to go around or under or over, but you've got to know why it's important. Otherwise, when you hit obstacles, it's going to stop you. And that's the last thing you want to do. Remember, we're setting a 1-year goal, 2026. So it's going to take some time and stuff's going to happen. So write down, why is this goal important to me? Why is it important to my husband, my wife, my family, my girlfriend, whoever is in your life? Why is that important to you? So be sure to write that down and be as specific as you possibly can. The next thing, step number 3, is how will it feel when I achieve this goal? And feelings are actually important in goal achievement. So you want to write down, how will it feel when I achieve this goal? Maybe how will my life be different? What will I look like? What will I be hanging out with? What will I be wearing? Why is it important to me? What's the feeling going to be deep inside my chest when I actually hit that $600,000 goal by December 31st of 2026. And if you're a fan or familiar with the law of attraction, which I'm a big fan of, and I've read the books and seen the movies and stuff like that, they got some stuff right, but not everything. So if you believe and understand the law of attraction, it says that if you think the right thoughts and you feel the right feelings, you'll attract what you want into your life. You'll attract what you're committed to in your life. So in other words, if I just sit and think the right thoughts, I earned $850,000 this year, and I feel the right feelings, I feel like I've earned it, that's going to happen. Well, they left one thing out. You have to feel the right thought, think the right thoughts and feel the right feelings, but you also have to take massive action. If I walked onto my deck right now and stared up at the sky and said, $1 million is going to fall out of the sky for me right now, and I really felt that, and I really thought that very powerfully, it's very unlikely that $1 million is going to fly out of the sky right now, because that just doesn't happen. Not without you taking massive action. And $1 million is still not going to fall out of the sky, even if you take massive action. But you can earn $1 million if you think the right thoughts, feel the right feelings, and take massive action. That's why the feeling is so important in goal setting. So you want to make sure you're very clear on how it's going to feel to you. And you want to remind yourself of this all year long. Then the next thing is, what am I willing to do to achieve this goal? So there's a price to pay for everything. Everything has a cost. You pay something, you get something. And the cost is your business plan here. So I want you to write a business plan for all the things that it's going to take to achieve your goal. Now, when I suggest you write a business plan, I'm not saying the type of business plan you would take to a bank to get a loan for your business. What I'm saying is there's a bunch of stuff that's going to have to happen we'll say not January 1st. I'm going to assume you're going to take that day off. But between January 2nd and December 31st of 2026, in order for you to achieve your goal. So let's say your goal is $100,000. There's stuff that you're going to have to do from January 2nd to December 31st of 2026 in order to achieve that goal. Write it down. Write your plan down. Much of it's probably going to have to do with prospecting. You're going to have to make calls, send emails, knock on whatever it is that you do to prospect. Write all that stuff down. And once you write everything down that you have to do to achieve your goal, break it into what I call baby steps. Its smallest component parts. Each thing that you have to do, break it into its smallest component parts. And why do we want to do that? Because it's easier to do small things than it is to do big things. It's hard to lose 100 pounds. It's easy to lose 3. So you want to break everything down that you have to do into its smallest component parts so that it makes it easier for you mentally to do them. And once you do that, you put them into chronological order. here's the thing I have to do first. This has to come next. You put them into order. And I personally like an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet for this, because you can have the thing, and then you could have the by when, and you could have a check column for, did I do it or not? So I like doing that. So write your business plan, break everything down into baby steps, and then put them into chronological order. And then you have to decide on what's going to be my reward when I hit my goal, and what's going to be my punishment if I don't hit my goal. So I don't know about you. I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. I followed him for years and years. I've gone to many of his seminars. I've taken his sales training, which, by the way, was not very great sales training, but I consider him the greatest motivational speaker and a brilliant mind, the greatest motivational speaker certainly in my lifetime, and a brilliant business mind. And this is directly from Tony. He says that everything we do, everything, we're either chasing pleasure or avoiding pain. We're chasing pleasure, we're trying to get some pleasure, or we're trying to avoid having pain. So if that's true, and I believe it is, I've given this a lot of thought, and I believe Tony is right. If that's true, in order to maximize the likelihood of you achieving your goal, you want to attach enough pleasure to the achievement of the goal and enough pain to the lack of achievement of the goal. It can be an either or, but I prefer to do both. So when you set your goal, you should also have what's my reward going to be when I achieve my goal, and what's my punishment going to be if I don't. And I'm going to take a sidestep with a quick story to illustrate this point. Several years back, I got a call out of the blue from a guy named Steve. And he said, Jeff, I got your name from so-and-so. I actually don't remember who referred him to me. But he said, I got your name from so-and-so, and I heard you're a great coach. I'm an insurance broker. I'm used to making $300,000 or more per year. I've done it for a long time. But in the last 2 years, my income has plummeted, and I need to make $300,000, and I don't know what to do. Can you help me? And we talked about me coaching him. And we went through this same process, because the first thing I always do with a coaching client is help them set their goal and take them through the process that I'm taking you through right now. Now, there's a couple of things I need to tell you about Steve, which will make this story make more sense. First of all, Steve was a college athlete. He was a college football player. Steve was 6'7", and I'm assuming that in college he was really well built, because athletes are typically in great shape. But Steve, when I spoke to him, was nearing 60 years old. And like many college athletes, he had stopped working out, but kept eating the same way after he left college. So when I met Steve, he was 6'7" and weighed almost 400 pounds. Really big guy, clearly not a guy who's going to the gym every day. The other thing you need to know about Steve is Steve lives, well, I don't know if he lives there anymore. I haven't spoken to him in a few years, but he used to live in a town called Greenwich, Connecticut. I live on Long Island, but I know Greenwich, Connecticut fairly well. My ex-wife's best friend used to live in Greenwich, Connecticut. I'll just say this. There are no slums in Greenwich, Connecticut. There are no ghettos in Greenwich, Connecticut. There are actual castles in Greenwich, Connecticut, and a lot of mansions and some really big homes. My ex-wife's best friend lived in Greenwich, but she always said, well, we live in Greenwich, but we have the worst house in Greenwich. Well, the worst house in Greenwich had a stream running through the property, a lot of property, and an in-house swimming pool. So that was the worst house in Greenwich. Now, why am I telling you this? Greenwich, Connecticut is not a rural, it's a suburban area. And unlike New York City, where you can walk around a city block in about 3 or 4, maybe 5 minutes, because they're all about the same size. Well, in Greenwich, Connecticut, it's more rural. It could be a mile to walk around the block. So now that you know Steve was a big fat guy who doesn't like to exercise, and he lives in a fancy neighborhood where it would take him a long time to walk around the block, here's why I tell you this. When I said to Steve, what pleasure are we going to attach when you hit your $300,000 this year? It didn't take him more than a second. He said, I'm going to take my family on the best vacation we've ever been on. Why? Because the last 2 years, I haven't been able to afford a really great vacation because my income had gone down so much. And he defined where he was going to take them. He was going to take them to a Reuben. There was a whole big thing about that. And then I said, Steve, how about pain? If by some strange chance I can't help you hit this goal, then what's the punishment going to be? And Steve thought about it for a while, and he said, well, Jeff, I don't exercise, and here's what I'll do. If I don't hit my goal, I will walk around my block once in January. Now, remember, it would be a long walk. It would be probably a mile or more. By the way, that was not Steve's exact house that you're looking at right now, but nice house. At any rate, he said, I'll walk around the block once. And I said, Steve, I don't think that's quite painful enough. And he said, how about twice around the block? I'm going to shortcut this story. I eventually got Steve to agree that if he did not hit his goal, He was going to walk around his block 3 times, but here's the best part. I got him to agree that he would do it in high heels and a bikini with me following him around with a video camera. Now, this was before phones all had video cameras in them, so I was going to have a big-ass video camera, and I was going to follow this big, tall, fat guy around his block 3 times in January wearing nothing but a bikini and high heels. You can bet that when the going got tough during that year, Steve remembered that he was going to have to do that, which I would assume would be pretty damn embarrassing for him. Now, I'd almost love to tell you that I have a videotape of me following Steve around, but I'm actually much happier to tell you I don't. He did achieve his goal, but that's how painful you want to make it. Attach enough pleasure to the achievement of your goal and enough pain to the lack of achievement of your goal, and you'll have a much greater likelihood of achieving it, especially when the going gets tough. Next, you have to write down when you're going to get started or what action you'll take when you get started. And almost every goal-setting expert says the same thing. And that is, if you do not take some action towards achieving your goal within the first 72 hours after you set the goal, you probably never will. I say differently. If you don't take action within the first 24, forget 3 days, within the first day after setting the goal. And when I work with people, it's let's do something right this second. What's the one thing you can do right now to get started? Because it's hard to get started. It's hard to get going. It's much easier to keep going than it is to get going. For example, this is the perfect time of year to talk about this. So right now, people are taking a look at New Year's resolutions and goals for the year. And a lot of people are going to join a gym in the next 2 weeks because January is going to be the month that I'm going to get started. And 2026 is the year I'm going to get in shape. Now, people who own gyms know that they are going to vastly oversell the capacity of the gym because by the 3rd week of January, I forgot the exact number, but it's something like 62 or 65% of the people who sign up in December will no longer be going to the gym by the end of January. They know this for a fact. So we want to make sure that we're not that person who's going to get started and not keep going. But it is hard to get started. For example, let's say you do commit to going to the gym in January and you wake up on January, well, not January 1st. Let's give you a break that day. You wake up on January 2nd, you open your eyes and you go, oh, crap. I can't believe I have to go to the gym. Well, let me see if I can find some excuse for not going. And it takes forever to get out of bed. And then you got to go find your sneakers and your gym outfit. And then maybe I should make a cup of coffee. And maybe the traffic will be too bad. Maybe I shouldn't go to the gym. But you force yourself to get in the car. And then you drive over there and you see there's other people going in and everybody looks in shape. And maybe I shouldn't even go in. But you force yourself and you go in. And you work out. And that first day, it's painful. It hurts. But the second day, it still hurts. And guess what happens on the 3rd day? It still hurts. But by the end of about the 2nd week, it starts to feel a little bit better and it gets a little bit easier. It's hard to get going. It's easier to keep going. So you want to write down what's the action I'm going to take either immediately or within the first 24 hours, the next 24 hours toward reaching my goal. And then who will I tell about this goal to help me be held accountable? So the book is called How to Be Your Own Coach. And in a book about coaching yourself to success, which is we're really just telling people how we would coach them. In a book about coaching yourself to success, we still say you need an accountability partner. In fact, if you're in sales, and if you're not, you're probably not watching this because the people who listen to me typically are salespeople. If you're left to your own devices, you may not keep your word to yourself. Most of us will work very, very hard to keep our word to somebody else. But we'll give ourselves a break. Like, I'm a pretty damn disciplined guy. When I give my word, well, first of all, if I give my word to you, I'd rather break my arm than break my word. My integrity is one of the most important things in the world to me. So I'd rather break my arm than break my word to you. But a promise that I make to myself, even though I'm a disciplined guy and a guy who integrity is incredibly important to, I'll give myself a break. I'm gonna lose weight by X date, and then dinner time comes and I'm like, oh, I forgot to take some chicken out. I'll just order some Chinese food and I'll get started on the diet tomorrow. So you need somebody who's going to hold you accountable. And when you pick an accountability partner, by the way, it does not have to be a coach like me. You don't have to pay somebody to hold you accountable. Now, in my coaching practice, amazingly, because your clients are your best source of business intelligence, most of my clients tell me that the thing they like best about the coaching is that I hold them accountable, but that's neither here nor there. You want somebody to hold you accountable, and you want the right person. You want somebody who's going to hold you accountable, and not when you tell them you didn't do what you said you were going to do, say, that's okay, I'm sure you tried your best. Like if I called my mother, who's 94 years old, who I love dearly and she loves me, and I said, Mommy, I need you to help me out. I need an accountability partner. I'm going to make 20 cold calls a day for the next week. And when I talk to you next week, Mommy, I want you to ask me if I made my cold calls. And if I tell you I didn't, I want you to give me a hard time. I want you to really I want you to spank me with a belt like you used to when I was a kid, you rotten Mommy. And she would go, I never did that. She did once or twice, but it's okay. I turned out all right. At any rate, if I called my dear mother next Monday and said, hey, Mom, I didn't make my calls, you know what she would say? That's okay, sweetheart. I'm sure you tried your best. I know how busy you are. And if you knew my mother, that's a pretty darn good impression of her. You don't want somebody who's going to give you a break. You want somebody who's going to go, hey, you gave me your effing word. Don't break your word to me. In fact, with my coaching clients, I tell them up front before they pay me, if you break 2 promises to me, I'm firing you as a client. If you've already paid me, you're not getting your money back. Don't come into this coaching opportunity unless you're serious about success. And if you're not going to keep your word, you're not serious. So get an accountability partner, meet with them once a week. And by the way, it can be a very quick meeting. This should never take more than 10 minutes for 2 people. Make promises to each other. Then the next week, come in and say, last week I promised this, I did it. In which case you get a virtual high five, or you didn't do it. You want them to kick your butt. Anybody is fine as an accountability partner, as long as it's not your family, because they're probably going to be too easy. Somebody in the same situation as you, perhaps a salesperson also, doesn't have to be from the same company, but get somebody who's going to hold you accountable. All right. So that's really it. This is not overly complicated. If you didn't do that while we were talking, then you can certainly watch this on the replay and go through it again. You can reach out to me at 2 places. You can reach me at jeff@salesconfidencelab.com or jeff@jgsalespro.com. JG Sales Pro is my training coaching business for corporations, and the Sales Confidence Lab is a 12-week program that I put together for what I call the accidental seller. Coaches, consultants, people like that. The next one is starting January 6th. We're going to meet on Tuesdays for 2 hours on Zoom for 12 weeks in a row. And in that, I cover the mindset of selling as well as all the skill sets of selling. Everybody has an accountability partner. All the sessions get recorded, and they're in a community that everybody has access to. I ran the lab in, what was it, August, September? Yeah, August, September, and October. We had about 17 people in it. And I'm a pretty confident guy. In fact, I'm a very confident guy, and I had great expectations for this program. The testimonials I've received and the results that people tell me they got blew away any expectations that I had. One gentleman who was in the lab after the 4th week, not the 12th week, after the 4th week, reported to me he was already closing business 25% better than he was before. So that's starting January 6th. You can always call me if you want to discuss this. My cell is 516-314-9037. There's a coupon code for the Sales Confidence Lab. You can go to that QR code at the top right. It'll take you to the landing page. You can go to salesconfidencelab.com. There's a coupon code Duke. That's my dog, DUKE 50, and that gets you $50 off. Or if you just want to discuss the lab or anything else, you're welcome to call me. I also have a group on Facebook that's free. That's called the Sales Pro Network. You're welcome to join me there, and that's it. I wish everybody the happiest of Happy New Year's. I want you to be happy, healthy, and prosperous in 2026. And if I can help with that in any way, please do reach out. Thanks, everybody. Have a very happy New Year. If you're Jewish, happy Hanukkah. If you're not and you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. If you celebrate Kwanzaa, happy Kwanzaa. Whatever you celebrate, it's good by me. Happy everybody, and make it a great 2026. Thanks, everyone.